The Galactic Council Chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its walls carved from the hull of the first dreadnought to fall in the War of 7 Suns. Representatives from 43 species sat in perfect circles, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolution's wildest experiments. At the chamber's heart, holographic displays showed the grim reality that had brought them together, the Devourer fleets massing at the galaxy's edge. Ambassador Thexeri of the Valorian Empire rose from her crystalline seat, her 6 arms gesturing in the ancient patterns of diplomatic urgency. Her species had ruled the galaxy for 12 millennia, their psychic abilities and tactical genius unmatched by any known civilization. Yet even her melodic voice carried notes of desperation as she addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, the intelligence reports are undeniable. The Devourers have consumed 17 galaxies in their march toward our borders. Their bioships number in the billions, each one capable of stripping a world bare in days. We have perhaps 2 standard years before they breach our outer defenses. A rumble of fear echoed through the chamber as translation matrices converted her words into thousands of languages. The Kethmoran representative, a massive crustacean whose species had never known defeat in conventional warfare, clicked his mandibles in agitation. Our fleets are mighty, but the enemy adapts to every weapon we deploy. They consumed the Andromedan's quantum cannons and emerged stronger. They absorbed the Helix Confederation's temporal bombs and learned to manipulate time itself. High Commander Zeftos of the Stellar Marines floated in his mobility sphere, his ancient cybernetic form a testament to 10,000 years of military service. The mathematics are clear. Current projections give us a 0.3% chance of victory using conventional forces. Even if we united every fleet in the galaxy, we lack the adaptive capability to match their evolutionary responses. The chamber fell silent, except for the subtle hum of life support systems maintaining dozens of different atmospheric requirements. Each species present had conquered star systems, built empires, achieved wonders that defied imagination. Yet they faced extinction at the hands of an enemy that grew stronger with every battle. Ambassador Krill Anna of the Hive Minds leaned forward, her insectoid features sharp in the chamber's ethereal lighting. There is another option. The architects spoke of it in their final transmissions before the Devourers consumed their galaxy. They mentioned a theoretical possibility, though they deemed it too dangerous to pursue. Every translator in the chamber focused on her words as she continued. Project Genesis, the artificial evolution of a perfect warrior species, not through technology or genetic manipulation, but through environmental pressure so intense it would forge something unprecedented. Thexeri's mental shields flickered with barely contained emotion. The architects were the most advanced species we ever encountered. If they considered it too dangerous. They also lacked our desperation, Krillana interrupted. The proposal is elegant in its simplicity. Select a young world with developing life forms. Subject them to controlled catastrophes, predation, and environmental pressures over millions of cycles. Guide their evolution not through direct intervention, but through the crucible of survival itself. High Commander Zeftos accessed his tactical databases with mechanical precision. The theory suggests that continuous pressure would produce not just physical adaptation, but psychological resilience, tactical thinking, and most critically, the ability to innovate under extreme stress, traits the Devourers have never encountered. The debate that followed lasted 14 standard hours. Representatives argued about ethics, practicality, and the morality of deliberately subjecting a species to eons of hardship. The Zenthari Collective spoke of karma and cosmic balance. The Machine Confederacy calculated probability matrices. The ethereal orders consulted their mystical databases. In the end, it was the harsh reality of mathematics that decided their course. Extinction was certain without radical action. Project Genesis offered a sliver of hope, no matter how ethically questionable. The world they selected hung like a blue jewel in a quiet arm of the galaxy. Third planet from a yellow star, its surface covered in vast oceans and emerging land masses. Primitive life had already begun the long journey from microscopic organisms to complex creatures. Scans revealed nothing exceptional about the world, which made it perfect for their purposes. "We will call it Terra," Thexri announced to the reduced council that would oversee the project. "The seeding has already begun." What followed was the most carefully orchestrated campaign in galactic history, yet one designed to appear entirely natural. Asteroid impacts redirected to create mass extinctions, followed by evolutionary explosions. Climate manipulation to drive species adaptation. Careful introduction of predators and environmental challenges that would push developing life to its absolute limits. The overseers watched from hidden observation posts as Terra's children struggled through ice ages and volcanic epochs. They witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, each generation stronger and more adaptable than the last. Massive reptiles gave way to smaller, more intelligent creatures. Marine life developed complex hunting strategies. Plant life evolved chemical warfare capabilities that would have impressed the galaxy's finest military scientists. "The planet learns," noted observer Yixtal during one of the regular progress reports. "Each extinction event produces survivors with new capabilities. The environmental pressures are creating exactly what the simulations predicted: adaptability, resilience, and innovation." Cycles passed. The overseers aged and were replaced by new generations who continued the vigil. The project became legend among the galactic community, a desperate gamble that might bear fruit long after its creators had returned to dust. Some questioned whether they were creating saviors or monsters. Others wondered if the experiment had already succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. On Terra's surface, a particular branch of the evolutionary tree began showing remarkable promise. Bipedal creatures that used tools, controlled fire, and most importantly, waged war against everything in their environment. They fought predators, natural disasters, diseases, and most fascinatingly, each other. Each conflict made them stronger, smarter, more resourceful. "They call themselves humans," reported observer Zelmoth during a critical briefing. "Homo sapiens. They have developed beyond our most optimistic projections. Their capacity for warfare is matched only by their ability to recover and adapt. They fight not just for survival, but for concepts we barely understand: honor, freedom, revenge." The overseers studied footage of human conflicts with mixture of awe and horror. These creatures threw themselves into battle against impossible odds. They developed weapons of increasing sophistication. They showed tactical brilliance that evolved with each generation of warfare. Most remarkably, they seemed to thrive on conflict itself. "Look at this." Commander Thexri's descendant pointed to holographic displays showing human expansion across their world. "They conquered every environment on their planet: deserts, frozen wastelands, mountain peaks, ocean depths. They even learned to fly by studying and surpassing their world's natural flyers. The humans developed agriculture, civilization, writing, mathematics, and engineering. But they also perfected the art of war in ways that astounded their hidden watchers. They created weapons that could kill from vast distances, strategies that could defeat superior numbers, and most importantly, the psychological fortitude to continue fighting when victory seemed impossible. "They have a concept called going down swinging," noted observer Kriltep during one memorable report. "When faced with certain death, they do not surrender. They fight harder. This is not programmed behavior. It appears to be fundamental to their nature." As human civilization reached toward the stars, the overseers faced a moment of truth. Their creation had succeeded beyond all expectations. These humans possessed every trait the galactic community had hoped for: adaptability, innovation, tactical brilliance, and an almost supernatural refusal to accept defeat. But they were also utterly unpredictable and potentially as dangerous to their creators as to any enemy. The debate among the remaining overseers was brief but intense. The Devourer fleets were now visible on long-range sensors, their approach accelerating as they consumed the Outer Rim worlds. Time had run out for conventional solutions. "We have created something unprecedented," admitted Elder Thexry, her mind heavy with the weight of billions of years. "Whether it will save us or damn us remains to be seen, but the choice is no longer ours to make." The activation signal was sent to hidden transmitters scattered throughout Terra's solar system. For the first time in millions of years, the humans would learn they were not alone in the universe. More importantly, they would learn why they had been forged in the crucible of endless conflict. On Terra, in laboratories and military installations around the world, strange signals began appearing on radio telescopes and deep space monitoring equipment, signals that pulsed with mathematical precision, clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, and clearly not of human origin. The universe was about to meet its newest children, creatures born from deliberate suffering and shaped by endless war. Whether they would prove to be the salvation of all galactic civilization or its final destroyer would be determined in the battles to come. But as the overseers watched human military forces mobilizing in response to the alien signals, one thing became clear. These creatures would not go quietly into extinction. They would fight, as they had always fought, with everything they possessed and some things they had yet to discover about themselves. The galaxy had wanted perfect warriors. It was about to find out what that truly meant. The first contact protocols that humanity had dreamed about for centuries crumbled within hours of the Galactic Council's revelation. What should have been mankind's greatest moment became its most terrifying awakening. The signals from space carried not greetings of peace, but desperate pleas for help and the horrifying truth about human origins. President Chen stood in the Emergency Command Center beneath Washington, her face pale as she absorbed the translated messages streaming across holographic displays. Around her, military leaders and scientists struggled to process information that shattered every assumption about humanity's place in the universe. "Let me understand this correctly," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We were created as weapons? Our entire evolutionary history was manipulated to produce soldiers for an alien war?" Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of the Xenobiology Response Team, nodded grimly. "The genetic analysis confirms it. Our DNA shows signs of environmental pressures that should have been impossible under natural evolution. Ice ages timed perfectly to drive innovation. Predator introductions that forced us to develop advanced hunting strategies. Even our conflicts with Neanderthals appear to have been orchestrated." General Harrison slammed his fist on the tactical display. 40,000 years of human struggle, every war we ever fought, every tragedy our species endured, all of it was some cosmic breeding program? "The transmissions suggest it was necessary," Dr. Martinez replied quietly. "These devourers have consumed entire galaxies. Every conventional military force has failed against them. The galactic community calculated that only a species forged in constant warfare could possibly what? Save them from their own failures?" Harrison's anger was palpable. "They created us to be their saviors, and now they expect us to die for civilizations we've never met?" The debate might have continued indefinitely, but new signals interrupted their discussion. These were not from the Galactic Council, but from the edges of human-monitored space. Deep space telescopes captured images that defied immediate comprehension. Massive structures moving between stars, their biomechanical designs unlike anything in human imagination. "Devourer advanced scouts," whispered Dr. James Chen, the president's brother and head of strategic threat assessment. "They're already here." The creatures that emerged from those first bioships challenged every human understanding of life and warfare. They stood 3 meters tall on 6 segmented legs, their bodies covered in chitinous armor that seemed to shift and adapt in real time. Most disturbing were their faces, or what passed for faces, which appeared to be constantly changing, as if the creatures were sampling different evolutionary possibilities. "They're not just adapted for war," reported Captain Maria Santos from the USS Enterprise, humanity's first deep space vessel hastily retrofitted for combat. "They appear to be evolution itself, turned into a weapon." The first engagement occurred near Jupiter's moons. Human forces, using their most advanced weapons, achieved initial success against the Devourer scouts. Plasma cannons and nuclear warheads devastated the first wave of attackers. For a brief moment, human confidence soared. Then the enemy adapted. The second wave of Devourers showed complete immunity to plasma weapons. Their armor had evolved to absorb and redirect energy attacks. Nuclear weapons that should have vaporized them instead seemed to feed their regenerative capabilities. Most horrifyingly, captured footage showed Devourers examining human corpses, their bodies literally absorbing and incorporating human genetic material. "They're learning from us," reported Dr. Martinez during an emergency briefing. "Every engagement teaches them our capabilities. They're adding our strengths to their own genetic library." It was Captain Jake Morrison of the Marine Expeditionary Force who first voiced what everyone was beginning to realize. "We can't fight them the way other species did. Conventional warfare just makes them stronger. We need to fight like humans." The strategy that emerged from humanity's desperate situation would have been impossible for any other species. Instead of developing superior weapons or defenses, humans began fighting dirty. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare the galaxy had ever known. The Battle of Titan became legend throughout the galaxy. Outnumbered 10-1 by Devourer forces, Colonel Sarah Park's regiment should have been annihilated within hours. Instead, they turned the moon's methane lakes into a massive bomb, sacrificing their own position to eliminate the enemy force. The Devourers had no genetic memory of creatures willing to commit mutual destruction. "They don't understand sacrifice," Park reported from her evacuation shuttle, her voice hoarse from the toxic atmosphere. "They can adapt to weapons, but they can't adapt to crazy." The pattern repeated across the solar system. Human forces abandoned conventional military doctrine in favor of increasingly desperate and innovative tactics. They turned asteroids into kinetic weapons, used the sun's gravity to accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed, and most effectively, learned to fight in ways that made no tactical sense. Lieutenant Commander David Kim became famous for the Omega Gambit, deliberately allowing his ship to be boarded, then detonating the vessel's reactor when Devourers had filled the corridors. His last transmission became a rallying cry for human forces. "You want to learn from us? Learn this." The Galactic Council watched these engagements with mixture of horror and fascination. Ambassador Thexery's reports to the emergency session reflected the confusion of beings who had never witnessed such warfare. "They fight like madmen," she reported, her psychic emanations tinged with disbelief. "Their tactical computers must be malfunctioning. They repeatedly choose strategies that ensure their own destruction along with the enemy. Yet somehow, it is working." High Commander Zeftos analyzed the data with mechanical precision. Human casualties are enormous, but Devourer adaptation rates have slowed significantly. The enemy cannot evolve defenses against tactics that are fundamentally self-destructive. How do you adapt to creatures that view their own death as acceptable collateral damage? The truth was more complex than the aliens realized. Humans were not simply embracing death. They were weaponizing their own psychology. Every human who grew up hearing stories of heroes who died for others, who learned about soldiers who held positions against impossible odds, who internalized concepts like honor and duty, had been psychologically prepared for exactly this kind of warfare. "We're not just fighting with weapons," explained General Harrison during a joint strategy session with Galactic Council representatives. "We're fighting with our culture. Every human child learns about the Spartans at Thermopylae, about soldiers who died rather than surrender. We've been preparing for this war our entire civilization. The effectiveness of human tactics became undeniable when the Devourer main fleet entered the solar system. The enemy force numbered in the millions, bioships that had consumed the resources of entire star systems. By conventional calculations, humanity should have been overwhelmed within days. Instead, humans turned their entire solar system into a fortress designed not to win, but to ensure that victory would cost the enemy everything. Earth's moon was hollowed out and filled with explosives powerful enough to crack planets. Mars was evacuated and converted into a massive kinetic weapon platform. The asteroid belt became a minefield that would detonate at the molecular level when triggered. Even Venus was weaponized. Its atmospheric pressure and corrosive environment turned into a trap for unwary Devourer forces. "You're planning to destroy your own star system," observed Ambassador Krill Anna during one particularly intense planning session. Admiral Rebecca Hayes, recently appointed to lead the Solar Defense Force, smiled grimly. "We're planning to make it so expensive that your Devourers will think twice before attacking anyone else. Every world they take from now on will cost them exponentially more than the last." The siege of Earth lasted 18 months. Human forces fought from prepared positions, using every advantage their desperate situation provided. They used guerrilla tactics in the asteroid belt, turned space debris into weapons, and most effectively, made every victory a Pyrrhic one for the enemy. The Devourers adapted, but each adaptation came at tremendous cost. When they evolved resistance to human explosives, humans switched to biological weapons. When they adapted to biological agents, humans used psychological warfare that drove the collective intelligence to distraction. Most importantly, humans kept changing their tactics faster than the enemy could evolve responses. "They're not just using new weapons," reported Devourer intelligence to their command hierarchy. "They're using new concepts, ideas we have never encountered. They fight with anger, with desperation, with concepts called revenge and spite. How does one evolve defenses against emotions we do not possess?" The turning point came during the Battle of Earth's orbital ring. Devourer forces had finally broken through the outer defenses and were preparing to land on the planet itself. Human casualties had reached catastrophic levels, but instead of surrendering, the remaining forces implemented their final strategy. Every human military installation, every major city, every significant population center had been rigged with weapons capable of sterilizing continents. The message broadcast to the Devourer fleet was simple. "Take our world, and you will get nothing but radioactive wasteland. We will deny you everything, including our own corpses." For the first time in their million-year existence, the Devourers faced an enemy that would rather destroy what they were defending than allow it to be captured. The concept was so alien to their collective consciousness that their advance halted while they tried to process this new variable. That hesitation proved fatal. Human engineers had spent months preparing for this moment, positioning humanity's most powerful weapons not to defend Earth, but to ensure that a Devourer victory would be meaningless. When the enemy fleet entered the final kill zone, the trap was sprung. The detonation that followed could be seen from neighboring star systems. Earth survived barely, but the Devourer fleet was obliterated so completely that not even genetic material remained for their collective to analyze. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers had encountered a total loss with zero adaptation potential. The aftermath left humanity changed forever. Their population was reduced by 60%, their infrastructure in ruins, their star system scarred by the most destructive war in galactic history. Yet they had accomplished what no other species had managed. They had not just defeated the Devourers, they had taught them fear. As rescue ships from the Galactic Council arrived to offer aid, Admiral Hayes stood in the ruins of the orbital defense platform, looking out at the stars where humanity's future lay. The universe had wanted warriors forged in conflict. Now it would learn what those warriors could accomplish when they fought not for alien masters, but for themselves. 3 years after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy had become a very different place. The Devourer threat, once considered unstoppable, had retreated to the galactic rim after suffering their first decisive defeat in 1,000,000 years of conquest. But the victory had come at a cost that few in the Galactic Council had anticipated. Humanity was no longer content to remain in its corner of space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the restored halls of the Galactic Council chamber, her footsteps echoing in spaces that had once seemed impossibly vast. Now they felt almost cramped. The perspective of a species that had just fought for its survival against cosmic extinction tended to make even the grandest achievements of older civilizations seem small. "The human delegation has arrived," announced Thexri, her mental emanations carefully controlled, but tinged with something that might have been nervousness. The Valorian Empire, once the undisputed leader of galactic civilization, now found itself dealing with a species that had proven willing to commit mutual annihilation rather than accept defeat. Elena took her place at the newly installed human section of the chamber, a series of simple chairs that looked austere compared to the elaborate constructions used by other species. The simplicity was deliberate. Humans had learned that survival often depended on flexibility rather than comfort. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of Terra," intoned the ceremonial protocols, but Elena could sense the underlying tension in the chamber. Representatives from 43 species studied her with mixtures of gratitude, fear, and calculation. "Thank you," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly in the vast space. "I come before you today not as a supplicant or a subordinate, but as the representative of a species that has paid the ultimate price for galactic security. We have questions that require answers." The first question had been brewing since the moment humans learned the truth about their origins. Elder Zeftos, his cybernetic form showing signs of recent upgrades, accessed his memory banks with mechanical precision. The architects left detailed records of their experiments before the Devourers consumed their galaxy, he reported. Project Genesis was one of 17 different approaches they attempted. Only yours succeeded. The others... He paused, his sensors flicking through data. The others produced species that either destroyed themselves or became as dangerous as the Devourers. "So we weren't the first," Elena observed. "How many worlds like Earth were seeded? How many species were subjected to millions of years of deliberate suffering for your experiments?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Ambassador Krillana finally spoke, her insectoid features unreadable. 47 worlds were selected across different galaxies. Most experiments failed within the first 1,000,000 cycles. Others produced species too aggressive to survive technological advancement. Earth was the only success. Elena absorbed this information without visible emotion, though her tactical implant was recording every detail for later analysis. Humanity had learned to compartmentalize horror during the war with the Devourers. The revelation that their entire species was an experiment built on the bones of 46 failed attempts was merely another data point. "And now?" she asked. "Now that we've served our purpose, what is our role in your galactic order?" The question cut to the heart of the new reality. Humanity possessed military capabilities that exceeded those of any other species. They had tactical doctrines that were literally incomprehensible to civilizations that had known peace for millennia. Most importantly, they had proven willing to use those capabilities without regard for cost or consequence. High Commander Zeftos consulted probability matrices that flickered through thousands of scenarios. Integration protocols suggest assigned territorial boundaries within the outer rim, technological exchange agreements, and gradual cultural assimilation over the course of several millennia. Elena's laugh was not pleasant. Assigned boundaries? You're suggesting we return to our reservation and behave ourselves while you manage galactic affairs? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Every species present had seen footage of human military tactics during the Devourer War. The creatures sitting in those simple chairs had demonstrated abilities that violated every principle of civilized warfare. "We propose a partnership," Thexry interjected quickly, her psychic abilities detecting dangerous shifts in Elena's emotional state. "Humanity has proven invaluable in military matters. Your tactical innovations, your willingness to accept casualties, your ability to function under extreme pressure, these are capabilities the galaxy needs." "Needs for what?" Elena asked. "The Devourers are contained, not destroyed. Our intelligence suggests they're adapting to human tactics even as we speak. In perhaps 50 to 100 years, they'll return with countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize our advantages." This assessment had been humanity's most closely guarded secret since the war's end. Human military analysts had studied every engagement with the Devourers, and their conclusions were terrifying. The enemy's collective intelligence was using human tactics to evolve new approaches to warfare. The next invasion would be far more dangerous than the first. "Which brings us to our proposal," Elena continued. "The galaxy spent millions of years creating us as weapons. Now we suggest you let us do what we were designed for." The holographic displays activated around Elena's position, showing star charts that encompassed regions far beyond traditional galactic boundaries. Human exploration vessels had been mapping the cosmic web for 3 years, following Devourer retreat paths and discovering the remnants of consumed civilizations. "There are 18 galaxies showing Devourer infestation," Elena reported. "Our preliminary surveys suggest approximately 3 billion inhabited worlds under their control. The scale of the threat makes our recent victory seem almost insignificant." Ambassador Krill Anna's mandibles clicked in agitation. "You're proposing what? A campaign of extermination across multiple galaxies? The logistical requirements alone would be impossible." "Not extermination," Elena corrected. "Liberation. Every world the Devourers have consumed still contains the genetic legacy of the species they destroyed. Our xenobiology teams have developed techniques for recovering and reconstructing those genetic patterns. We can bring back the dead." The chamber erupted in translation static as 43 species tried to process this concept simultaneously. The technology Elena described was theoretically possible, but had never been attempted on such a scale. It would require resources that exceeded the combined capabilities of all galactic civilizations. The cost would be astronomical, calculated High Commander Zeftos. Fleet construction alone would require the industrial output of every member species for centuries. The casualties among human forces would be acceptable, Elena finished. "This is what you made us for. We're offering to do exactly what you designed us to do, fight wars that no one else can win. But we're not doing it as your weapons. We're doing it as equal partners in a galactic alliance." The negotiations that followed lasted for months. Human demands were extensive and non-negotiable: equal representation in the Galactic Council, territorial sovereignty over their expanding sphere of influence, technological sharing agreements, and most importantly, command authority over military operations beyond galactic boundaries. Some species objected to treating a relative newcomer as an equal to civilizations that had existed for millions of years. These objections were quietly withdrawn after human military advisors provided detailed assessments of how quickly human forces could conquer any objecting system. The final agreement, known as the Terra Compact, established humanity as the military arm of an expanded galactic federation. Human forces would receive unlimited resources and support for operations against the Devourers, while other species would focus on reconstruction and technological development in liberated territories. The first expedition launched 6 months after the compact's signing. The human expeditionary fleet consisted of vessels that incorporated lessons learned from the Devourer War. Ships designed not to survive battles, but to ensure enemy victories were prohibitively expensive. Each vessel could be converted into a weapon capable of sterilizing star systems if necessary. Admiral Sarah Chen, daughter of the president who had first learned of humanity's origins, stood on the bridge of the UES Thermopylae as the fleet prepared to jump to humanity's first target, Andromeda Galaxy, where an estimated 50 million worlds awaited liberation. "Fleet reports ready for transition, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. "All vessels confirm Scorched Earth protocols are armed and ready." Chen nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed the largest military force in galactic history. 2,000 human vessels, supported by supply fleets from 43 allied species, preparing to wage war across intergalactic distances. "Signal to all vessels," she commanded. "Today we begin the work our species was created for. But we do it not as weapons forged by others, but as guardians choosing our own path. The universe wanted creatures capable of eternal war. Let's show them what eternal war actually means." The transition drives engaged, tearing holes in space-time large enough to accommodate humanity's largest fleet. As the last vessels disappeared into the quantum foam between galaxies, Earth's orbital sensors picked up new signals from the cosmic deep. Devourer fleets, larger and more advanced than any previously encountered, moving toward the galaxy from 17 different directions. The enemy had learned from their defeat and was preparing a response that would test every capability humanity possessed. But humans had learned something as well. They were no longer fighting for alien masters or abstract concepts of galactic security. They were fighting for the right to determine their own destiny in a universe that had tried to use them as tools. The war for the cosmos had begun, and humanity intended to win it on their own terms. The universe had craved creatures capable of endless war. Now it would discover what happened when those creatures decided to fight for themselves rather than others. In the depths of space, between stars that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations, the real battle for existence was just beginning. And for the first time in cosmic history, the outcome was truly uncertain. The weapons had become masters of their own fate, and the galaxy would never be the same.